In a festive atmosphere, Kuwait commemorates the 60th anniversary of its independence in light of the developmental leaps and achievements the country is witnessing in various fields. The anniversary of Kuwait's independence, which coincides with today, is a pivotal turning point that is renewed annually, especially as the country has become a major player and plays a vital role in the region and has clear imprints on the global level in various fields.
On behalf of the British Embassy in Kuwait, I would like to congratulate His Highness the Emir Shaykh Al-Ahmadu Subha, and of course His Highness the Crown Prince and the ruling family, and the entire Kuwaiti people on these very important national days, marking the 60th anniversary of independence and of course the 30th anniversary of liberation from occupation. We have a very close relationship between Britain and Kuwait, and we therefore share very much in these very important auspicious days and celebrations.
Kuwait gained its independence on June 19, 1961, during the reign of Shaykh Al-Salam, and the anniversary of that date witnessed the first Kuwaiti celebration of Independence Day, which was held on June 19, 1962. Kuwaitis continued to hold the Kuwaiti Independence Day on June 19th of each year between the years of 1962 and 1964, until an Emiri decree was issued on May 18, 1964, in which Independence Day was merged with the day the late Emir Shaykh Al-Salam assumed the reins of power, corresponding with February 25th of each year, starting from 1965. Since then, Kuwait celebrates its independence on this date, naming it its national day.
Well, a lot of people say that it is, if they wanted to have a really good relation, you look at the Kuwaiti United Kingdom relation. We share a lot of values, we work with each other, we cooperate with each other, we have constant contact with the United Kingdom, and United Kingdom has constant contact with Kuwait towards a lot of issues. Well, of course, the relation between Kuwait and United Kingdom goes back to more than 2 centuries. And when they started their ships, you know, to Kuwait, Kuwaiti ships, you know, that to India, to Africa, and 1899, that it is, you know, the relation became an officially solid relation between United Kingdom and Kuwait. That the royal families have a good relation between each other. We've had 2 state visits of our both late Shaykh Jabir and Shaykh Sabah, and they were very successful visits. And the United Kingdom and the other world, you know, they admire the way that United Kingdoms and Kuwait cooperate with each other, and we established a lot of cooperation between our 2 countries. We've been having this relation for a long time, since the 50s, you know, that the Kuwaiti graduated from United Kingdom and different universities, and this is cooperation. It's helping us a lot, you know, to patch up, you know, that the excellent relation between our 2 countries.
The 19th day of June 1961, the late Emir Shaykh Al-Salam announced the end of the British Protectorate Treaty by signing the country's independence document with the British High Commissioner in the Arabian Gulf, Sir George Middleton, on behalf of the British government, is considered a pivotal day in the life and purpose of the state in achieving comprehensive development at various fields.
Britain is very proud of having played a part in the US-led coalition which liberated Kuwait in 1991, 30 years ago. And of course, this does reflect the very close relationship between Britain and Kuwait on all sorts of levels. We have continuing very close defence cooperation between our two countries, but we have developed very extensive cooperation and continue to deepen and broaden our cooperation across a very wide range of subjects in the security sphere, especially now in working together to tackle the threat of cyber attack, in strengthening cyber security. Education is a very important area. I'm pleased to say that at the moment more Kuwaitis are studying at UK universities than ever before, more than 6,000, and that despite the challenges, of course, of the pandemic and COVID-19. We're working together with our Kuwaiti friends and partners also in the areas of scientific cooperation, science and research and innovation, in areas such as the development of technology for renewable energy. Last year we had a very extensive visit by representatives of the Kuwait Institute for Scientific Research and the Kuwait Foundation for the Advancement of Science to visit a whole range of British universities with a leading role, cutting edge in research in areas that are of great interest also to Kuwait, especially in the area of protecting the environment.
The speech delivered by Shaykh Al-Salam to the Kuwaiti people after signing the document of independence had a great impact on the souls of Kuwaitis towards building a brighter future and fulfilling high ambitions. He said, "My dear people, my brothers and children, on this most dear day of our beloved country, on this day in which we move from one stage to another in these stages of history, and with the dawn of the morning, we turn a page from the past with all that it bears and what it entailed, to open a new page that is represented in this agreement by which Kuwait gained its complete independence and full sovereignty." The independence document represented a decisive turning point in the contemporary history of Kuwait, as the protection agreement signed by Shaykh Al-Sabah, the seventh ruler of Kuwait, with Britain in 1899 was cancelled to protect the country from foreign ambitions.
Well, as you know, the United Kingdom has always stood by Kuwait over many, many years. 2 years ago, we marked the 120th anniversary of the 1899 Treaty of Friendship between Britain and Kuwait. Britain, throughout this period, has always stood by Kuwait, including by helping Kuwait to deter aggression from outside and standing by to defend Kuwait's sovereignty and territorial integrity. So when Kuwait was occupied in 1990, the United Kingdom felt this very keenly, and our leadership at the time, our Prime Minister at the time, was instrumental in securing the mandate in the United Nations at the end of November 1990 during the UK presidency of the Security Council, which effectively paved the way for the coalition which was already being assembled, for the coalition forces then to launch the air campaign and the ground campaign, which led to liberation and corrected this wrong for future generations and liberated Kuwait.
The signing of the independence document was preceded by deliberate steps by Shaykh Al-Salam Subha since he assumed the reins of power in 1950, as he worked to achieve independence and declare the Constitution, especially since the country at that time was ready for development and renaissance in various fields. The year of independence witnessed the issuance of an Emiri decree regarding the Kuwaiti flag, its shape and its colors. It was the first flag raised after independence. The independence of Kuwait caused a great resonance in all circles, especially at the Arab level, and many statements and cables supported and blessed this great event for Kuwait and its people. Arab reactions followed, supporting and blessing this important step in the history of Kuwait and its return to its normal position in the Arab ranks, a free, independent, and national sovereign. On the diplomatic level, the first step was to establish the Ministry of Foreign Affairs by issuing an Emiri decree on August 19, 1961, to establish a Department of Foreign Affairs exclusively concerned with carrying out the state's foreign affairs. The decree stipulated in its second article to merge the Kuwaiti government secretariat with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which was transformed in the first ministerial formation to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In 1962, Shaykh Subha Al-Salam was appointed Minister of Foreign Affairs in the first ministerial formation and was followed by the late Emir Shaykh Subha Al-Ahmadu in the second ministerial formation in 1963. Shaykh Al-Salam decided to establish a democratic system in which the people would participate in government. His desire was to drop a permanent constitution for Kuwait written by the people. On August 26, Emiri Decree No. 22 of 1961 was issued regarding conducting elections for the Constituent Assembly in fulfillment of Shaykh Salam's desire to establish a system of government based on clear and solid foundations and to issue a constitution based on democratic principles. Elections were held on December 30th of the same year to select representatives from the Kuwaiti people as the members of the Constitutional Assembly in charge of drafting the Constitution of Kuwait. With these elections, Kuwait was divided into 10 electoral districts, and each district elected 2 members, bringing the total number of seats to the council to 20, in addition to ministers. The elections resulted in the victory of 19 new members, in addition to 1 member of the Second Legislative Council in 1938, Abdul Latif Muhammad Thnayan Al-Ghanim. Mahmoud Al-Zaid Al-Khalid, Abdul Aziz Hamad Al-Sagr, and Muhammad Yusuf Al-Nisif were elected for the council and for taking charge at the ministry. Shaykh Salam Al-Sabah inaugurated the first session of the council on January 20, 1962, and Abdul Latif Muhammad Thnayan Al-Ghanim was nominated as chairman of the council with Dr. Ahmed Muhammad Al-Khatib as vice chairman. A constitution drafting committee was formed consisting of 5 members, and the late Shaykh Saad Al-Abdullah Salam Al-Sabah was chosen as the committee's chairman. Shaykh Salam Al-Sabah ordered the members of the ruling family who are members of the Constituent Assembly as a result of their presence as ministers to refrain from voting on any article of the Constitution and leave that to the elected members of the council. Drafted within 9 months, the Constitution was drawn up in 5 chapters and consists of 183 articles. On November 11, 1962, the members of the Constituent Committee presented to His Highness the Emir of Kuwait at Sif Palace the draft constitution approved by the Council. The late Emir Shaykh Salam delivered a speech on this occasion in which he said, "We praise God Almighty who has allowed us in this historic stage of the life of our dear people to achieve our wish to establish a constitution for the country based on sound democratic foundations that conforms to our traditions and responds to the hopes of our nation." The Constitution of Kuwait delineated an integrated organization towards a future in which the country enjoyed more prosperity and international status, providing citizens with more political freedom, equality, and social justice. Shaykh Salam ratified the Constitution 3 days after the date it was submitted to him by the Constituent Assembly, and the Kuwaiti Constitution was issued on November 11, 1962. Upon ratifying the Constitution, the Emir wrote the following introduction. In the name of Allah the Merciful, We, Al-Salam al-Sabah, Emir of the State of Kuwait, the desire to complete the causes of democratic rule for our dear homeland and faith in the role of this country in the ranks of Arab nationalism and the service of world peace and human civilization, and in pursuit of a better future in which the country enjoys more prosperity and international status and gives citizens more political freedom, equality, and social justice, as well as lays the foundation for what they are put on the Arab soul, is one of pride in the dignity of the individual, keenness on the good of the group, and a consultation in government while preserving the unity and stability of the homeland. And after reviewing Law Number 1 of 1962 concerning the basic law of governance in the transition period, and based on what the Constituent Assembly decided, we ratified this constitution and issued it. And with the approval by the Constitutional Committee, it was published in the official Gazette the next day.
The Constitution was a huge step psychologically. We had been under British protectorate for many years, and this was a real taking over of the reins. It showed that we were taking independence seriously, that this was really our time as Kuwaitis to take control of our own leadership, that we were strong politically and ready. It was a powerful symbol to bring us all together as one, to show we had to come together united. The Constitution gives all Kuwaitis equal rights. The rules of the Constitution are fair and progressive, and written in a very clear and simple language. They were obviously written for the people, for the citizens of Kuwait, not only for judges, not only for lawyers. It was an important step to show that we were all in together, all valuable, all what we need is to be united to make it work.
A few months after the constitution was approved, the first comprehensive elections were held in Kuwait to elect members of the first parliament. It officially signaled the start of political practice under the provisions of the new constitution, and was the entry through which the limits of the country's main legislative, executive, and judicial powers were implemented as well. The provisions of the Constitution came in their entirety to consolidate the foundations and constant that Kuwait has followed since its inception and flowed through its people's veins in terms of relying on their lives and their actions on the foundations of shura, democracy, and popular participation that the Constitution decided and codified for Kuwait in its development and modern parliamentary democracy. The 1962 Constitution is the natural result of a number of historical demands and consultations, and it is the effort of the people that preceded us, which is the agreement of the ruler and the ruled, which was embodied in the most sophisticated form of the social contract and was clearly translated into a modern constitution that preserved the entity of the state. The Kuwaiti Constitution stipulates that the number of ministers in Kuwait may not exceed 1/3 of the number of members of the National Assembly. This means that the number of Kuwaiti ministers should not exceed 16 ministers only, and members of the National Assembly can join the Council of Ministers as well. The Kuwaiti National Assembly consists of 50 members elected by citizens in the state of Kuwait, and the Council of Ministers can choose members of the National Assembly to position of minister as well, and these members are known as legislators. The Constituent Assembly continued in currency until January 20, 1963, before it dissolved itself to hold the first parliamentary elections to choose the members of the first parliament. Also, during Shaykh Al-Salam's rule, the first elections of the National Assembly were held in January 1963 and continued up until the 2020 Council. The reign of Shaykh Al-Salam, which spanned 15 years, was one of the most prominent in the history of Kuwait, and he was called the Father of Independence and the Father of the Constitution due to his strenuous efforts, sacrifices, and wisdom to achieve this independence. Kuwait began in that era to develop laws and regulations such as the nationality law, the Kuwaiti currency law, the passport law, and the organization of government departments, all of which are steps on the road to complete independence, and about 43 civil and criminal laws and legislations have been completed. An Emiri decree was also issued to organize the judiciary and make it comprehensive for all jurisdictions in disputes that take place in the country. The next step after Kuwait's independence came with a membership request to the Arab League, accepted on July 16, 1961. Following that, the UN Security Council began considering Kuwait's application to join the United Nations after its independence, ultimately granting membership on May 14, 1963. Kuwait proceeded steadily towards the New World Order and international legitimacy by rejecting aggression, protecting human rights, preserving the privacy of states, and not interfering in the affairs of others. It also believed in the role of the United Nations in maintaining international peace and security. Kuwait hosted a number of international conferences to support refugees and the afflicted, and participated in several conferences to support the Palestinian cause and diffuse crises in the region, which is clear evidence of the continuation of the old approach upon which the state was founded. Kuwait was a member of many international institutions, including the Maritime Consultative Organization and the International Union of Wire and Wireless Transportation. It then became a member of the Universal Postal Union, the World Health Organization, and the Food and Agricultural Organization. Kuwait also joined the United Nations Educational, Scientific Research and Cultural Organization, or UNESCO, as well as the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, known as OPEC. At that time, Kuwait was not far from interacting and participating in many Arab social and cultural activities. The country was equipped with many well-organized departments and prepared at the structural level for further expansion and development, such as departments of public works, public health, publications and publishing, state financial assets in addition to knowledge, municipality, post, telegraph, telephone, electricity, water, gas, social affairs, public endowments, radio, and television. The years following independence witnessed many achievements. Kuwait was and will remain the jewel of the Gulf through the development plan that New Kuwait 2035 seeks to achieve by attracting foreign investments and achieving a comprehensive renaissance in all the projects included in the plan.
We have excellent steering committee, and Zaid was a member of that, this steering committee talking about everything's relation between Kuwait and United Kingdom. And they have two meetings, one in United Kingdom and the others in Kuwait. So we have our cooperation deeply, deeply intensified in our history, and 2035, part of it, they are proposing a lot of issues, and we are accepting them, and we wanted to cooperate with them a lot of media, as you know, politically, economically, military, and students also culturally. You can't believe that we have 7,500 students, Kuwaiti students, here in the United Kingdom. 2 years ago, when British Embassy, that it gave the visa and issue EV visa, it's more than 300,000 visits for Kuwaitis to come to United Kingdom. So that it shows how the relation between the two countries. And we are cooperating with them in 2035.
Since the dawn of independence until today, Kuwait has accomplished much on the road to comprehensive renaissance, whether in terms of foreign or domestic policy. Perhaps these accomplishments come in realization of its vision, New Kuwait 2035, aimed at transforming the country into a regional and international financial and commercial center, accelerating the economy and strengthening the role of the private sector in supporting economic development. Among the most recent of these achievements is the opening of the Al-Salam Palace Museum on April 29, 2019, which is considered one of the most important historical and architectural monuments in Kuwait, dating back to the beginning of the 60s of the last century. Another grand accomplishment was the opening of the Shaykh Al-Ahmadu Subha Bridge, which is the fourth longest sea bridge in the world, and the opening of the late Salwa Subha Al-Ahmadu Subha Stem Cell Center in 2018, which is the first in the Gulf region. Kuwait has taken important steps in economic, social, and human development while focusing its attention largely on the environment and maintaining a firm commitment to global partnership and international solidarity. In terms of economic achievements, Kuwait entered the list of the 10 most improved countries in the Ease of Doing Business Index for 2020, according to the 17th annual report of the World Bank Group on Business Environment 2020. The importance of this improvement is not limited to just the business environment, but also to achieving higher efficiency in the performance of services provided to citizens in general in a way that contributes to enhancing the performance of the economic cycle and increasing investment flows, leading to achieving sustainable growth, economic diversification, and the development goals of the state of Kuwait in order to achieve Kuwait's 2035 vision. Kuwait is taking confident strides towards a bright future with the promising New Kuwait 2035, aimed at bolstering the country's financial status to include a variety of income resources other than oil revenues. The plan, considered as a gateway to the future, also helped Kuwait recently jump in the World Bank Group's Ease of Doing Business Index. Kuwait was amongst the 10 best improvers, reaching the 66th position on the list, which included 190 countries. It also improved its position in the Middle East region by developing its competitive standards, a matter acknowledged by the World Economic Forum's Global Index, which saw the GCC country jumping 8 positions to rank 46 out of 141 countries. According to Ernst & Young, Borsa Kuwait will attract around $10 billion in investments as a result of various promotions by international entities such as Morgan Stanley, Britain's FTSE Russell, S&P's Dow Jones, and so on. Kuwait is well aware of the importance of diversifying income away from oil, which represents 90% of the country's national production. Oil has been the elixir of life for many economies in the Arabian Gulf, and Kuwait is no exception. That is where Kuwait Vision 2035 laid the roadmap for transforming Kuwait into a regional, financial, and commercial hub. The geographical location of the country aided in its economic growth and development of a national character as it connects two important natural resources, the desert and the sea. Since then, Kuwait launched various projects within Vision 2035 in coordination with the public and private sectors, with the opening of the Jabr Causeway project, which links Kuwait City with Subha in the northern part of the country. The development plan saw a boost, paving the way for the future Silk City project. Kuwait seeks to put the private sector on the forefront of its efforts to reshape the economy, especially with the IMF indicating that the sector is able to assimilate 100,000 Kuwaiti citizens in its workforce within the upcoming 5 years. Kuwait relies on the oil sector for about 90% of its revenues and has sought to diversify its economy as part of its 2035 vision. Due to diversifying its economy, Borsa Kuwait completed the Kuwaiti capital markets inclusion into the MSCI Emerging Markets Indices with the successful implementation of the first tranche of index inclusion. A total of 7 listed companies, the National Bank of Kuwait, Kuwait Finance House, Zain, Agility, Bobian Bank, Mabani, and Gulf Bank were included. The inclusion brought in huge inflows to the market as the total traded value during the inclusion was over 961.6 million Kuwaiti dinars. This stands as proof of the Kuwaiti capital market apparatus' success in absorbing these unprecedented foreign inflows. Kuwait's inclusion in the MSCI Emerging Market Index represents an important milestone in advancing the Kuwaiti capital market and putting Kuwait on the worldwide investment map, as well as a recognition of Borsa Kuwait's instrumental role in improving market access and efficiency, enhancing transparency and governance, increasing liquidity, and strengthening investor confidence. Even throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, Borsa Kuwait continued to engage with its partners in the local and international investment community to ensure a successful inclusion, which wouldn't have been made possible without the unlimited support of the Kuwaiti capital market apparatus and the rest of the government institutions. Borsa Kuwait introduced a series of measures for the Day of Inclusion, including an extension of the closing auction and the trade at last session. In cooperation with the capital market apparatus, Borsa Kuwait conducted a series of stress tests to enable the Kuwait trading system to absorb the number of orders and trades conducted during the inclusion. The landmark development comes as global recognition of the sweeping market development efforts undertaken by Borsa Kuwait, the Capital Markets Authority, and the Kuwait Clearing Company. The reclassification announcement occurred as a result of the successful completion of the implementation of MSCI's recommendations, including the introduction of omnibus account structures and same national investor number cross trades by the end of October 2019, a month ahead of the stated deadline. This year's National and Liberation Day celebration slogan represents Kuwait's effort to achieve and protect peace around the world, initiated by His Highness the late Emir, Shaykh Subha Al-Ahmadu Al-Jabr Al-Sabah, and carried on by His Highness the Emir, Shaykh Nawaf Al-Ahmad Al-Jabr Al-Sabah.
Our best examples are given, I believe, by our late Emir, Shaykh Subha Al-Ahmad Al-Jabr Al-Sabah, who was well known and respected for his endeavors for peace. He was known as the Dean of Arab Diplomacy. The Shaykh convened the first conference of solidarity to raise funds for the refugees of the Syrian civil war, initiating a large donation that other countries felt they had to match. He was instrumental in establishing the GCC and worked hard to foster a resolution to the Qatar conflict and the GCC conflict. Despite the former war in Iraq, he supported very deeply the rebuild of Iraq following ISIS attacks, showing that peace, forgiveness and discussion are the way forward, and this is the way that Kuwait always been operating. Kuwait hosted negotiations between warring Palestinians and Israeli to try to broker peace. Kuwait Parliament is one of the oldest in the region and is one of the parliaments that has the greatest power in the region, simply because Kuwait believes in the value of honest, value of communication, diplomacy and democracy. This, I believe, earns Kuwait the respect in international arena.
On September 9, 2014, then Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, held a special function at the UN headquarters in New York to express the UN's and the international community's appreciation for Kuwait's generosity and kindness. This move came as Kuwait has shown exemplary leadership in supporting global humanitarian and relief operations. The conferences and gatherings hosted by Kuwait over the past years have contributed into etching Kuwait's name in history as a humanitarian center. Kuwait hosted 3 donors conferences for the Syrian people in 2013 and 2014, where $3.6 billion was pledged, of which Kuwait contributed an amount of $800 million. Kuwait does not hesitate to provide support and humanitarian assistance to people in need and to help mobilize international response to humanitarian crises around the world. The country has intensified its humanitarian action to cope with the surge in regional conflicts and numbers of displaced people worldwide. Its contributions to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees since 2013 amounted to approximately $400 million, which helped provide emergency humanitarian aid and protection services to millions of conflict-affected men, women, and children in Syria, Yemen, and Iraq. The UN designation of Kuwait as a humanitarian hub in 2014 was a well-deserved move due to Kuwait's unprecedented initiatives and generous donations to people in distress, assuming the leading role in regional and international philanthropy. Kuwait also co-chaired the 4th International Donor Conference held in London in February 2016, as well as the 5th International Donor Conference held in Brussels in April 2017, which raised aid pledges amounting to $335 million. The world witnessed the commitment of Kuwait through its active engagement with UN agencies and its huge donations to relevant humanitarian and charitable initiatives.
And also that we share the same values. We want the area to live in peace, no conflict, and helping the others. As you know, Kuwait with the Kuwaiti Fund and United Kingdom with 7% of their GP, they are helping the world, helping the less fortunate people in the world. And this is, that the values they share with each other, and we are proud of it.
Kuwait has become a pioneer country in international humanitarian philanthropy and humanitarian initiatives, hosting many related activities. In line with this humanitarian vision, the state of Kuwait has worked to alleviate the suffering of people in major crises by providing assistance to more than one country, as well as raising the volume of donations in countries affected by natural disasters. The United Nations honoring of the state of Kuwait has received an unprecedented international, regional, and local praise by senior leaders and officials of international organizations and personalities who pay tribute to Kuwait's outstanding efforts in international humanitarian action. More broadly, and despite the disruption caused to global commerce and travel, COVID-19 has provided Kuwait with an opportunity to further strengthen international ties. In mid-March 2020, Kuwait provided financial assistance to regional neighbors Iraq and Palestine in their responses to the virus. Parallel to this, Kuwait donated $40 million to the World Health Organization to support its efforts to combat the pandemic. Furthermore, the Kuwait Fund has contributed $4 million to UNICEF's COVID-19 response in Syria, supporting the most vulnerable children and families. On the international front, Kuwait has sought, since its independence, to pursue a moderate and balanced foreign policy, taking openness and communication as principle. Since its independence, Kuwait has been keen to provide humanitarian aid and lift oppression from those in need, resulting in humanitarian work becoming an important characteristic of the country's image. As such, Kuwaiti diplomacy spent 2 years in the halls of the United Nations Security Council, actively tackling various issues and putting its weight behind Arab, Islamic, and humanitarian causes. It used its membership in the Security Council to shed light on various important issues such as the Syrian crisis, the Palestinian cause, and Yemen. As the only Arab member of the Security Council at that time, Kuwait worked to represent the voice of the Arabs throughout this membership within the context of the outcomes and resolutions of the GCC, Arab League, and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Through its non-permanent membership in the Security Council, Kuwait succeeded in enforcing its distinguished diplomatic mark and present solutions to many complex issues facing the world, and coordinate with member countries to suggest and adopt many important projects, resolutions, and statements. On January 1, 2018, Kuwait began its membership at the Security Council as a non-permanent member, succeeding Egypt to represent Arab countries. Although it was faced by many challenges, Kuwait tackled some of the most important global tasks, most significantly maintaining peace and security and improving work methods at the Security Council. During its tenure on the Security Council, Kuwait presented a number of draft resolutions concerning significant global issues and released statements on many vital issues concerning Arab and Islamic countries. On February 2018, Kuwait assumed presidency of the Security Council, and during that month, many important sessions were held with discussions on three major issues: Palestine, Iraq, and the purposes of the United Nations Charter in maintaining international peace and security. On May 31, 2019, Kuwait chaired the Security Council for the month of June for the third time in its history. The first was in February 1979 during its first non-permanent seat term at the Security Council, and the second was on February 2018. Chairing the UN Security Council is considered a historical moment for Kuwaiti diplomacy, whose foreign policy is based on balance and moderation, respecting principles of the UN Charter and international laws, and seeking to actively contribute to maintain international peace and security. On June 11, the UN Security Council unanimously adopted a Kuwaiti draft resolution on missing persons in armed conflicts. The resolution aims to support and promote frameworks to protect civilians in armed conflicts and is the first to deal with the matter of missing persons at times of conflict, forming an aspect of the precautions aimed at protecting civilians. Due to the state of Kuwait's passion, this was the first time, at least, they acknowledged the importance of the issue and urged working to resolve it from the start of the conflict. There were measures proposed in the resolution that urged the international community and UN member states to take action to uncover the fate of missing persons and cooperate with relevant bodies such as the International Committee of the Red Cross. These actions included responding to queries from families of those missing and taking certain measures aimed at determining their fate. The draft was adopted unanimously by the 15-member Security Council after receiving much praise and adulation, reflecting the status of Kuwaiti diplomacy on the humanitarian level. On June 13, 2019, Kuwait released a presidential statement at the UN Security Council on the cooperation between the Council and the Arab League during a session which included representatives of both bodies to discuss cooperation between the United Nations, regional and sub-regional organizations in maintaining international peace and security. The statement affirmed that the UN Security Council is responsible for maintaining international peace and security, and that resolutions and presidential statements which assert the need for establishing an effective partnership between the UN and regional organizations according to the UN Charter and relevant regulations applied in regional and sub-regional organizations. As part of its more recent endeavors and as reaffirmation of Kuwait's stance in achieving a peaceful world, Kuwait, on behalf of the Arab countries, called for a permanent Arab representation with full powers in the Security Council in the event of any future expansion of it. Such a call by the Arab group came based on objective criteria represented by the Arab population density and the number of Arab countries in the United Nations, in addition to the fact that a large part of the Council's work and issues on its agenda relate to the Arab region, which requires fair and proportionate Arab representation in the expanded Council. Kuwait iterated that the Arab group adheres to the realization of real and comprehensive reform of the Security Council, especially as it is the main body entrusted with maintaining international peace and security under the United Nations Charter, so that it becomes more capable and effective to face and overcome the relevant challenges within a more representative, transparent, neutral, and credible framework. Kuwait has called for working towards reaching a solution to achieve interests of everyone, including the Arab group, instead of focusing efforts on disagreements over the drafting of documents.
We share values, and it shows to us and shows to United Kingdom that when Kuwait became part of the Security Council in New York, in the UN, well, the cooperation between Kuwait and United Kingdom is unique by itself. We cooperate in every field, in every level. And I would like to conclude with this. United Kingdom appoints a special envoy to the Gulf. And the Gulf, I'm not talking just about Kuwait, but the rest of the GCC, to help to build the relation between United Kingdom and the Gulf. And we are proud as Kuwaiti to play a part of it.
Kuwait's mediation efforts to iron out Gulf differences enabled the signing of the Al-Ula Declaration during the 41st Gulf Summit in Saudi Arabia's capital, Riyadh.
I think last month's success reaching peace amongst the GCC is a great example and a wonderful positive start of the year. We all need this kind of positive news at the moment. Also, the UK Foreign Secretary, Mr. Dominic Raab, paid a statement to Kuwait mediation efforts and urged the parties to continue building this positive dialogue. Also, the EU mentioned the importance of Kuwait mediation role. Personally, on a personal level, I'm very proud of Kuwait's reputation for diplomacy and negotiation, and I'm confident we will continue to foster this belief in working together as a global whole. Current emergencies such as climate change, COVID-19, only show the importance of nations coming together to support one another to find global solutions.
The signing of the Al-Ula Declaration and the summit's final communique signaled the start of a new chapter in pan-Gulf relations and a full restoration of diplomatic ties between Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Egypt to serve the country's interests and support the region's stability. The summit was important as it prioritized supreme interests of the GCC system and Arab national security, as it delivered a message to the world that whatever the differences are, the wisdom of GCC leaders was able to overcome all these differences and steer the region, its states, and peoples to safety. Since the dawn of independence and over the past 60 years, Kuwait has accomplished much on the road to a comprehensive renaissance with the cooperation of its people, leading to the wise leadership of His Highness the Emir and His Highness the Crown Prince. The renaissance and advancement of Kuwait is linked to its ability and its people to preserve its identity and to rally towards its leadership, and each of us must work in a way that protects and consecrates the security, pride and sovereignty and independence of this country. May Allah protect Kuwait, its Emir and its people, and perpetuate the blessings of security, stability, and prosperity.